think I used to write a lot of fiction, and I read a lot of fiction, and that was what I wanted to do, and I didn't really see poetry as something that was accessible. So when I started, I was writing a lot of like big chunky paragraphs, and I really vividly remember Michelle being like, break it down a bit and just kind of add some rhythm to it, and I didn't really see a way that was possible, and now all I write is poetry, and I think that's something that I like live and breathe now, and being a part of Young Writers Group really allowed me to actually access that and find ways to do that, and actually it's not linear and it doesn't exist in a box in terms of like these are the things that you need to do like structurally to make this work, and kind of just free writing free verse on a page is like amazing because poetry doesn't have to be anything, whereas I think fiction kind of does in order for it to do well. So I think I experience a lot more freedom now in writing because I kind of learnt how to write poetry.
Young Writers changed the way I write by helping me hear other people's voices and thinking that I want to change my style like I've heard someone else at Young Writers write in.
Young Writers has certainly changed the way I write, because at the beginning I came in hoping to write my magnum opus, a literary piece, a tome of fiction, and from then I've moved much more into poetry. I deal a lot more in I call it nonsense poetry and also satirical poetry a lot of the time, and that was something I never considered beforehand. Initially I was very much hoping to write my greatest work of daring adventure, fiction. I wanted to be a novel writer, and I did. I pursued some of that to begin with, but I often and quickly found that poetry was something which was easier to access and something which was a lot more fun, I found in the end. No disrespect to those great novel writers, but it completely altered what I thought about writing, and now that is what I do. I turn out poetry as opposed to anything else.
So as part of the Young Writers Group, I actually made sort of a jump in the way that I write my own poetry, and I started writing from the self, as opposed to from like the perspective of a character almost.
I think kind of owning your truth in a way, because sometimes I wasn't really doing that, and now I started writing more based on my personal voice, and that has worked. It's made me achieve more success in my writing.
Well, Young Writers has given me my style of writing. It's taught me how to write from my perspective.
I didn't really write poetry before Young Writers. I thought I was going to be, I wanted to write fiction for young adults. But then from the inspiration of Michelle and of Becky, they introduced me to this whole world of poetry and gave me this real confidence. And so I think that I write stuff that's got a lot more confidence and energy behind it than it would have if I wasn't in that group. It's got a sense of sound and rhythm, which I think Michelle's helped me to learn. And so yeah, it's got that. I love to write things that I think would sound good performed and have that performance and that energy, which is something I wouldn't have explored otherwise.